Well, we're 20 days into October. That means it's time for our annual user suggestions. Sometimes during Traumathon, I get a lot of suggestions that don't really fit into one video. Like, I can't really make an entire video out of it. But I know they're really important to you guys. And instead of just ignoring them and not doing anything with them, I instead ask you what your personal trauma is so that I could make a video about it alongside other people's traumas. Whether they be niche or incredibly popular, these are the ones that I want to do justice. Now, this is an episode of Traumathon that I want to do a little different. We're just going to sit back and relax. There's no script, there's no structure. I'm just going to read off your personal traumas and we're just going to ad-lib the entire thing, honestly. Starting out first with Christy. So there was this weird ass cartoon I watched when I was little. It was about ants growing the last segment of their body as if it were a part of puberty or something and calling it their kabump. One ant hasn't gotten their kabump yet, so he goes looking for it, I think. There's a part where he falls in a cave and comes upon something shiny and he says, "It's blinding me," and his pupils disappear and his eyes are solid white. Then he starts sobbing and singing this melancholy song about not seeing the sun, only memories of a brighter day, while feeling his way around the cave because he's been blinded. Eventually the tears cure his blindness, but the damage to my psyche was done, lol. This ant character that we've grown to care about in an otherwise cheerful, silly kids cartoon is horrifically blinded and is streaming tears down his face while singing a sad song. What the fuck? It's called Calavance, and there's a video of the scene I'm talking about. So I actually watched the video in question, and it is actually a very sad song. I didn't watch the actual animation. I don't really think I need to, but it's a really sad song, and it's not that bad. Like, the singing's kind of shit, but the music is actually pretty well done. If you gave it to a singer that can really belt out their lyrics, it would have been really like gut-wrenching. But it's a fucking scary thing. Like, imagine if you were to just, you remember that one scene in Pokemon where Ash just turns into fucking stone? Do you remember that, like, from the movie? That shit scarred me. It's horrifying to think about death, but it's another thing when you think about, like, crippling horrible things like blindness. Blind! You know, that, why did he need to be blind? Oh well. Oh, thanks, Christy. Here's Nathan with his sci-fi bumpers. Hey man, first off, I want to say that I love your videos. I saw your post and I couldn't help but submit this. Back in the day, my family and I would watch the Sci-Fi Channel's Twilight Zone New Year's Eve marathons. Oh, me too, actually. But not with my family, but by myself. Now, Twilight Zone could be pretty spooky, but it wasn't that stuck with me. It was the commercial bumpers. They were the surreal sci-fi fantasy shorts with random crap happening. Some were pretty chill, but others were downright terrifying. The ones that got to me was the guy staring into the camera, kind of blank expressions. Then a crow lands on his head and his head splits open and eats the crow. After that, he just smiles. Maybe not as creepy now, but definitely some nightmare fuel. I fucking love this entry because I completely forgot about the sci-fi bumpers. I really did. Like, I don't know how many of you remember them, but the Sci-Fi Channel was essentially, well, it is as it sounds. It's a sci-fi channel. They show sci-fi stuff or horror movies or anything of the sort, but they're really well known for their horror and marathons of Twilight Zone. After a while, it got kind of weird because I remember the Sci-Fi Channel changing their name to Sci-Fi. I know it's still pronounced sci-fi, but it's now hip and modern, and now we got wrestling in the Sci-Fi Channel, which was like the weirdest 3 years ever. But I loved these bumpers so much. It's what made the Sci-Fi Channel so unique and so, you know, attractive. Some of them were very provocative, some of them were very sad or imaginative, some of them were pretty funny, some of them were inspiring. I mean, they were just a range of different things. It's actually kind of cool because with a lot of these, you can build an entire story out of that. In fact, I'm sure that's what I did when I was a kid. I remember seeing some of these and just making up my own stories or daydreaming about what kind of things or events happened after these little bumpers. Funny enough, I never really found them scary or anything like that. I just found them very imaginative, and it sort of opened my world in different ways, and it helped me explore more horror and fantasy sort of things, and sci-fi, of course. That's why I loved the Sci-Fi Channel back when I was a kid. Also, apparently one of these were directed by David Lynch. I'm not really sure if that's true, and I tried doing a little bit of research in Sci-Fi Channel's bumpers, but I couldn't find much. Sadly, as the years went on, Sci-Fi sort of rebranded themselves, and even before the whole sci-fi sort of change in their logo, you could tell that there was a sort of shift in the way they wanted to present themselves, because these bumpers became a lot less elaborate and their budget just went to the shits. Like, look how short some of these later ones were. Yeah, they're not that great. They're a lot less imaginative. I mean, you're working with like what, $600 budget? That's not gonna get you far. Nevertheless, I love these a lot, and I totally forgot about them until I just started watching them again. Then my brain started piecing the puzzles, and I started to remember all this floodgate of knowledge that I completely blocked off. So thanks again, Nathan. That was incredible. I loved that real quick journey into my childhood. Here's one from the subreddit. Traumathon idea, Dance with the Devil by Immortal Technique. I don't know if anyone else can relate to this. I assume kids who grew up in poorer neighborhoods where this song would have the biggest impact have heard this song. The gist of this song is that it's the story of a young man who turned to a life of crime where he commits an absolutely heinous act to prove himself to high-level gangsters. It's an absolutely disturbing song that still gets to me as an adult. I remember listening to it on the way home from a family party when I was 10. My dad let it play on the radio and it absolutely scared the shit out of me. I assume he let it play to send me a message about criminals and the abhorrent things a life of crime can lead you into. I don't know if Goose Boose can relate or if he listened to it as a kid, but I figure I'd throw it into him my own personal trauma for consideration to the Traumathon. So I have heard of this as a kid, and it made me fall in love with Immortal Technique, and I grew up with him ever since. Like, I listened to all of his music. I absolutely loved his music. I wouldn't say I grew up in a bad neighborhood, but I didn't grow up rich, so I definitely lived in a poorer area of my town, and this song was something I had encountered maybe like when I was 11, maybe 12. It was shown to me by my cousin, who we were very close back then, so we used to share music with each other. And I remember his brother was making fun of him because the title of the song is Dance with the Devil, and immediately just images of like hardcore metal and rock just started like passing through us. So we made fun of him. We were like, it's Dancing with the Devil, like some sort of stupid hair metal band thing. But it wasn't. It's actually a fucked up song. Now, I know a lot of you don't really know what I mean by that if you haven't heard it, and I really do recommend listening to it. It's a really good song. It's more of a story of this, like the poster said. It's someone who was a kid who grew up in a really bad neighborhood who just did some fucked up shit in order to get noticed. And listen, this song does not pull any punches. Like, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not for people who get offended easily. This is a song of brutal reality, and if you can't handle that, then I wouldn't recommend this song, because at the end something really bad happens. Something that he didn't expect would happen to the main character happens to him. So if you have 9 minutes and you're willing to listen to that song and you can stomach that sort of thing, then go ahead and listen to it. I know when you think disturbing or scary music, you think of like, I don't know, that one song about Alzheimer's, but it's nothing of the sort. It's disturbing in the fact that it's a true story, and it is really just like, it's horrible to even think about it. Not only that, but the backtrack, the sample that's used in the song is actually kind of creepy. The sample comes from the theme song Love Story. It's a movie that in itself is very tragic, but the theme song is used in loop as a sample for the rap, and it's very haunting as it drones on and it gets darker and darker as the rap and story itself starts getting scarier and more disturbing. Really, I can't emphasize enough how much you should listen to this song. It is incredible. If this song was in a disturbing NSFW, NSFL, like iceberg, it'd probably be in the second level, but that's about it. Like, it's not gonna fucking, oh my god, it's the worst thing I've ever heard kind of deal. It's just a really sad and horrible story. Immortal Technique makes other music just like this, and it's really good. He's a fantastic lyricist. I love his music a ton, so if you loved Dance with the Devil and you can stomach through that, I really suggest exploring his other songs. It's really good. Also, he's the bully Lamano. Switch Speedster gave us this. This is something that should be on user suggestions. Courage has claimed to be the scariest show on Cartoon Network, but that doesn't mean Flapjack doesn't have some disturbing moments on its own. A lot comes from hyper-realistic illustrations. The worst of them all was Who Let the Cats Out of the Old Bag's House. Yeah, I knew someone was going to talk about this. Anyways, with a close-up with the cat that has sharp teeth and blank, dark eyes. The worst part is that they keep showing it again and again. It was seriously traumatizing as a kid, and I had nightmares about that cat several times now. It forever makes me avoid the show since. Even to this day, I still avoid the show, and that episode still scares me to this day. It is a very terrifying image. I've never seen that episode. I rarely ever watched Flapjack actually, but I remember loving it way more than any other Cartoon Network show at the time. I remember that one episode and that image in particular, and it is still a fucking scary image. And I'm gonna show it, okay? So just be warned, here it is right here. There you go. It is a horrifying Photoshop. Like, Jelly is still scared of that image and she hates it. I think it's a fantastic image, but I still think it's terrifying to look at. Look at this motherfucker. It's horrible. I don't know why. They showed it like 3 times throughout the entire episode too. Like, I saw a compilation about it. And the interesting thing about Flapjack is that that's not the only thing that is scary, as mentioned by Switch Speedster. There are other horrifying aspects to it, like voice changes and a lot of illustrations that are just horrifying. I remember there was this one episode where Flapjack literally just said, "They're here," and the scariest like picture shows up, like representing Flapjack. It is a really funny fucking show, and I seriously think it's super underrated. I know a lot of people talk about it nowadays, but when it came out, people didn't really watch it. It had very dark humor, which I think is a little ahead of its time, because you see that a lot now in Cartoon Network and whatever. But I think if it came out now, people would love it a lot more, but it didn't, so you know. Here's another one from Reddit by Beneficial Gap 2265. I got a suggestion for you, Goose Boose. The woman gets possessed by a ghost during makeup tutorial video. Although it's fake, it's surreal how she bashes her head out of fucking nowhere. I bet some young kids thought it was real. This video was pretty famous for a little while. Everyone that was doing creepy lists back then were pretty much adding this as a default. Like, everyone knew about it, everyone thought it was really creepy, and everyone knew it was fake. I think most of us thought it was really creepy, but I doubt many of us thought it was real. Like, maybe. I mean, I wasn't a kid at the time it came out, so it could have fooled some kids, and I've been fooled by dumber shit too. And honestly, from what I've seen, apparently it was uploaded by a YouTube channel called The 15 Experience, which claimed it to be a found footage sort of thing, like some sort of demon like possessed the woman to slam her head against the table. I'm not entirely sure on the story, but it is a really creepy video, and I unfortunately can't show the entirety of it because apparently YouTube has flagged it as sensitive and adult content, which I understand, but it's stupid. Actually, when you really think about it, this video came out in the perfect time, because around 2012 to 2014, that was the resurgence of creepy content and people's loves for creepy content. And I think also makeup videos were really popular. Like, people who you know in the makeup world are pretty much people who started around 5 to 6 years ago, around the same time this video came out and became viral. The makeup is actually really good and the acting is superb. Like, again, I can't show it, but you have to just take my word for it. It's really, really well done. Really, really bloody. Now, again, this was all done by the 15 Experience, and I assume it's somewhat of an ARG. Again, I'm not familiar with it, but if you would like to check it out, his channel is still up, but the video itself is not. He seems to be doing some pretty creepy shit himself right now, and he is apparently reworking on some of them. I'm not sure. Nevertheless, I love this video a ton, so thanks for the suggestion. I just wish I could show you. Another one by Reddit, posted by the PG Tips Monkey. I think the Tar Man from The Return of the Living Dead or this film in general could be a good suggestion for Traumathon. This photo was shown to me around 2012 in a class where he was on the computer and it scared the life out of me. I had this image stuck in my head for years and he still scares me. He is an incredibly scary monster. If you don't know about Return of the Living Dead, it is a movie that basically acts as somewhat of a parody, somewhat of a sequel to The Night of the Living Dead. It's a very influential movie that pretty much coined the term brains whenever it came to zombies and eating brains and whatever. It's a really well done movie and I fucking love it a ton. But if you think you're gonna get something scary, it's not really. It's mostly comedy, but there are some disturbing scenes and really freaky, well, things. But the Tar Man is probably the most famous zombie in the entire franchise. He's supposedly one of the original zombies from the original outbreak, and because of that, he is a rotting corpse that can barely really move. So I really love the way he moves around as if he has no guts or any sort of real structure within his body at all. He's just bones and tar and a little bit of skin. It's a really well made design and fucking terrifying. And here's one by Eduardo. The Trapper Keeper episode of South Park always scared me as a kid because of what happened in the middle of the episode with the mutant Cartman. I didn't know that it was based on Akira, and when I watched the movie later on, it gave me flashbacks to that episode. I figured out that the one type of horror that I find the most scary is body horror, despite the sources not really being scary or creepy. So I remember this episode, and I remember being really freaked out by this episode also. Do kids still use Trapper Keepers? Dude, Trapper Keepers fucking suck. Why were we forced to use Trapper Keepers? They're awful. But anyways, I guess there was a trend where the people tried to be really cool with their Trapper Keepers, or at least South Park made it seem that way. And Cartman, of course, having the ultimate Trapper Keeper turns into this fucking Akira horrible mess thing that it kills upon impact. And I think that's the thing that scared me the most. That episode is funny with a lot of the sci-fi tropes that they had going on. There's like a Terminator reference, obviously the Akira reference. There's also a reference to 2001: A Space Odyssey. It is a fantastic episode that's really funny to watch, but I don't know, when I was a kid I didn't know any of those references, so I had like existential dread. Even watching Akira now, like I remember that movie really fucking me up just because of the weird concept of it all, like the psychic energy just turning into a nuclear bomb and destroying everything. Yeah, that whole Cartman scene where he just kills Rosie O'Donnell on impact, and when he goes inside of Cartman and he's like in this weird space, and it's just scary. I can't explain why. I guess it's because it reminds me of The Blob, which I was really scared of as a kid. And I remember watching that movie before that episode came out, and it terrified me. So anything that reminded me of The Blob, in other words, Eric Cartman turned into that huge blobby Akira thing, that scared me so much. Just the idea of people melting and like this giant form of mass and muscle that can't really be discerned. It's just something about that really freaks me out, man. Alright, well, this is turning out to be really, really long. Sorry about that. Thanks everyone for the user suggestions, but this isn't the end. I have quite a lot more to go through, and I just barely scratched the surface. So, let's take a break right here and come back to this another time during Traumathon. Keep an eye out for part 2. For now, just enjoy the rest of Traumathon. Hope you guys are enjoying it so far. I'll see you guys in a bit.